With this project, last week we used black waterproof art materials to draw the positive space. That's the main part of your drawing. And today we're going to paint the negative space, but also I'm going to show you how to use a cup to make something circle. So for mine, I think it's going to be like either a moon or a sun. If you want to turn it into something else other than a sun or a moon, that's okay too. So I'm just using an empty used cup, and I'm just putting it right on my drawing where I want that sun to be. So we're kind of creating another negative space, an empty part. And I'm using watercolor paint, but if you want to use something else, that is totally okay. If you don't have any paint, you can also use marker and water. So I'm making my paintbrush wet. I think I'll use blue, but remember the sky doesn't always have to be blue. And then I'm just going to paint around that cup. And then I will carefully remove the cup, and that part is going to not be painted. And it's another negative space, a space that is empty. So I'm going to paint the rest of my painting, and I'm kind of using a lot of water because I don't want the color to be too dark. For watercolor paint, if you use lots of water, it's going to be lighter. If you use less water and more paint, it's going to be darker. And because we used a waterproof material like a permanent marker or a crayon, you should be able to just go over your drawing without having to kind of outline it. So that's another benefit of using a waterproof material. So you can just go right over your first drawing. You can even go over your lettering if you have any. Okay, so now while the paint is still wet, I'm going to get my paintbrush clean, pick another color, and I'm doing plum flowers, which are kind of like a pink color. So I'm getting a red, and then I'm going to add some dots onto my paper. And because the paper is already wet, the paint's gonna kind of spread, and it's gonna kind of turn into bigger circles that look like beautiful flowers. So this technique is also called wet on wet watercolor because you're adding some wet watercolor on top of already wet paper. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm gonna let this dry. I'm not gonna pick it up right away because if I do, it's gonna kind of blend everywhere. So I'm gonna let it dry, and then next week we're going to be mounting it. That means we're gonna glue it onto a background paper to make it look like the Chinese scroll paintings. So this week, try and make a negative space using some kind of a tracer. It doesn't have to be circle. If you want to try and find something else, that's okay too. But try and use a tracer to color or paint around it to use that as your negative space. And if you do have paint, it might be fun to try the wet on wet watercolor technique as well. So make sure to send me a picture of your painting once you're finished.